All right, the leadership of the Democratic majority on Capitol Hill is getting pushback over their call for more security around the Capitol in the wake of the events of January the 6th. This includes support for a 10-foot fence around the perimeter of the Capitol. Now, but fueling the pushback was Speaker Pelosi's comments last week that the enemy is within. Now, that certainly does not sound like unifying language. Here is a full clip of what she had to say last week.
Today, when I meet with General Honore, he is looking at members here, members at home, and in between. So we want to have a scientific approach to how we protect members. I do believe, and I have said this all along, that we will probably need a supplemental for more security for members when the enemy is within the House of Representatives, a threat that members are concerned about in addition to what is happening outside.
Joining me now to talk about this and the latest on negotiations over a stimulus bill is U.S. Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri. He also serves on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Senator Blunt, welcome back to the program.
Tony, great to be with you.
All right. Americans are concerned about, and I know members are as well, about the prospects of a 10-foot permanent fence around the United States Capitol. I mean, that just, it reminds me of something I would see in a third world country, not something here in the United States of America.
Well, I think that optics do matter. I think how people approach the building matters, how they look at the building matters. This is truly the citadel of democracy, as a symbol to the whole world. And I do think we want to be very thoughtful here that we don't overreact. You know, so often in Washington, something goes up temporarily and it stays up. When President Clinton was president, the Oklahoma City bombing, they decided to temporarily close Pennsylvania Avenue between the White House and Lafayette Park, never reopened. And we don't want to see that happen again, I don't think. And, 20 years ago, when I was about to become the chief deputy whip, two of our Capitol policemen were killed right inside the building. And I don't recall in that debate about moving forward with the visitor center and other things that there was ever any consideration that the Capitol of the United States would be closed or in any way become a fortress. I think of all the capitals in the world, our capitals, the Capitol building itself has always been the most open, the most accessible. You see in traditional times thousands of people walking through the Capitol a week and talking about the great history that's occurred there, at the same time understanding that the work of the current government goes on in exactly that same place, and they become part of that. So I think we want to be very careful that we don't allow that really petitioning the Capitol away from the people. At the same time, we want to be sure that people that are at the Capitol, both working and visiting, have all the freedom that they can have and at the same time have all the security they need. And I think we can find that balance.
Well, it's becoming more difficult, and it is a sad commentary on society as a whole that we have to take these extreme security measures. And I've been very clear about this. I know you have, most conservatives have, that what happened on January the 6th at the Capitol was despicable. It is not reflective of what conservatives see as the way forward or how we should respond to lawlessness or irregularities in our election. We never can uphold the law by lawless activities. But that said, it appears to me that what the Democratic majority is doing is seizing upon this to try to push extreme measures that would separate the people from their government. And in a case in point, Senator Blunt, going back June of last year, remember when the Trump administration erected a fence, a temporary fence around the White House because of the rioting that was taking place in Washington, D.C. And you'll recall what happened after the president did an acceptance speech at the White House for his nomination, there was rioting outside, and people were attacked, including one of your colleagues, Rand Paul. I never heard support at all for the fence there. In fact, the media was criticizing, Democrats were criticizing the fence that the president put up.
Well, that's true, and some of that is just pure politics. Some of it, I think, frankly, is trying to take advantage of the moment here and suggest that the radicals in America are all somehow on the right end of the spectrum, and you don't hear any discussion of the weeks and months of buildings, federal buildings being attacked and police being attacked in Seattle and in Portland. And I'm opposed to that,
right,
just as I'm opposed to what happened in Washington on January the 6th. I will say that what happened in our capital on January the 6th really defied, I think, the imagination of both the country and even our own Capitol Police Force, who, in all likelihood, they were going to be managing confrontation between the president's supporters and the president's opponents, and instead saw that crowd coming toward the Capitol. We'll find out more about that later, but the way to stop that, I'm convinced, is not to build a barrier, but in fact continue to have the building as open as it can be, and a place where the school children come and where visitors come from other countries, and they get a sense that this is the capital of a free country where people freely associate with each other. And I think you can find that balance between that and people running wild through the halls of the Capitol or the Senate and House office buildings or anywhere else. That is not acceptable. It's frankly the idea that somehow you dismiss this as just people who got carried away. When you're standing there for hours or minutes, which seem like hours, in this case it was both on different sides of the Capitol, fighting physically with the Capitol Police, you know that this is not a building that you're being invited into in the circumstances you're trying to get in, and we can't let that happen again. But I don't think a fence or 20,000 National Guard troops is what it's going to take to stop that. We can find a better way, and we will.
So how do the American people that are concerned about the direction that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer may be going on this, how do they make their views known?
Well, I do think they have to talk to the people that work in the building and let them know that they think that whether they intend to visit the Capitol themselves or not, they think people should be able to do that. They think that the barriers that might appear to protect the Capitol are unlikely to do that if we don't have a security system that secures the building. You've got all kinds of ways to attack any building or people in that building that don't involve somebody physically getting in. We just have to sort of up our game everywhere in terms of the intelligence component of our security. But we need to be thinking, as we do before the inauguration, which I've shared now twice, about the vulnerabilities that you have when, in that case, you've got this incredibly appealing example, but also appealing target outside on tons of plywood and lumber. You have to think about everything you can imagine from the air, from any other location, and just take that into consideration, but understand that that's not worth giving the moment up for, right. That the country has to stand for freedom and integrity. And when you begin to divide the debate of the country into us versus them, and not our ideas versus their ideas, but us versus them, I think that's something that we really shouldn't allow ourselves to go down that path in America.
Could not agree more. Senator Blunt, before we run out of time, the Biden administration pushing an almost $2 trillion stimulus bill. Now, apparently, about 10 Republican senators of your colleagues meeting with the Biden team to try to find a way forward. Give us the latest on that.
Well, I think every indication from the last several days and even today from the Biden press people before that meeting occurred was that the president thinks that his bill, if anything, isn't big enough and doesn't get enough money out there to do what he'd like to see done by the government in the country. And there's clearly an easy path forward here with vaccine distribution and other things, and looking for people and organizations that truly have been crippled, but it's not giving thousands of dollars to virtually every American family, and going in and doing things that will impact our economy in a negative way for a long time, Tony.
Yeah, there is a limit to what the federal government can do. One thing I think needs to happen, these governors need to let economies start rolling again with businesses opening up. There are limits. Senator, as always, great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Great to talk to you. Thanks for what you do, and your good advice and your good friendship.
All right. Thank you, Senator Roy Blunt from Missouri.